Mr. Deputy Speaker, can I just point one thing out at the outset? Whilst I'm sitting with colleagues from Northern Ireland around me who we rarely agree on very much, I think they'll agree with that, we agree on this. We're coming at it from different perspectives. We will make different types of speeches, but we agree that this piece of legislation goes absolutely against the wishes of the people of Northern Ireland and absolutely against the interests of the victims in Northern Ireland. And nobody on these benches is interested in social media clips or dipping out in and out of an issue every couple of months. We've been doing this for a long time, and we speak to every single victims group, and we try our best to represent them. Some people might not like that in this House, Mr. Deputy Speaker, but we will continue to do it as well. The Chairman of the Select Committee is somebody I have great respect for, but he did say in his remarks that there's something in this for everyone. Well, let me tell you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and I say this with great respect, there's absolutely nothing in this bill for the victims and those people who've been left behind by all those perpetrators who destroyed lives and families over many years. And I was interested to listen to the member for New Forest East's intervention at one point, where he intimated that we've all been fighting with each other and we needed the British government to come in and sort out this problem for us. There's a fundamental misunderstanding of what happened in Northern Ireland over many years and many centuries, Mr. Deputy Speaker. The British government is no neutral observer in what happened here. We cannot be allowed to make the decisions on behalf of the people of Northern Ireland. We've already agreed how to resolve this issue. It's called the Stormont House Agreement. As difficult as that is, as complicated as it has been, that is the route. It is the only route that has buy-in from all the political parties and two governments. At least it used to have. Before I came into this chamber, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I went for a cup of tea with a man called Michael O'Hare. His sister was called Magella. She was 12 years old in 1976. She was walking with her friends to the chapel. She was shot twice in the back by a British Army parachute regiment member. Michael doesn't want an amnesty for anybody. And I was reminded very much of another case in my own constituency by the fantastic and heartfelt speech from the member for Skippon and Ripon, when he talked about Patsy Gillespie. The IRA abducted Patsy Gillespie from his house, left his wife Kathleen and family at home. Patsy was somebody who worked in a British Army base. He was chained to a van full of explosives and forced to drive in to that Army base on the Buncrana Road in Derry. Patsy was killed along with 5 British soldiers. The people who carried that out will be freed from any concern as a result of this legislation. I also wondered about the Ballymurphy families, who in August 1971, 11 people were killed by the British Army, by the parachute regiment again. Daniel Taggart was one of those victims. His daughter is called Alice Harper. This is what she had to say recently. We identified my daddy by his curly hair. 14 times they shot him. The next day they blackened his name and called him a gunman. 2 years later, my brother Bernard, with a mental age of 9, was killed by the IRA. We want no amnesty for anyone, says Alice. The Ballymurphy families would never have seen the truth that the world got to see about what happened on Ballymurphy if these proposals had been brought in before they got the result of that inquest. And we hear that this new system is going to provide truth for people. Well, Columba McVeigh was 17, Donegal, County Tyrone. He was abducted and killed by the IRA and his body was disappeared. His body has still not been found, despite the fact that the Independent Commission for the Location of Victims' Remains allows for immunity in these cases. It would have allowed for the IRA to come forward and tell Columba's family exactly where that body was buried. They haven't done it. That's the point. The idea that this will bring truth to families is absolute nonsense. The pretence from this government that this is about victims or reconciliation is frankly an out-and-out lie. This is about politics. This is about a manifesto commitment. This is about protecting the state, as it always is. And it will protect every single perpetrator who committed those crimes in Northern Ireland. I can't find anybody, apart from the members opposite, who believes that this legislation is the way forward. The Queen's Law School Model Bill team have described it as unworkable. It breaches international law. Alison Kilpatrick, the Chief Human Rights Commissioner in Northern Ireland, said, "We are sure that this bill is substantially, if not fatally, flawed." This is an overt attempt, Mr Deputy Speaker, to close down access to truth and justice for the victims of our conflict. It rips up the Stormont House agreement, an agreement that people have bought into, and it does not have the support of the parties in Northern Ireland. It has absolutely no support from victims groups in Northern Ireland, many of whom have told us in the past few days that they will boycott these processes if they become law. What this proposal is about, and others have said there's no such thing as collusion, I can't believe we're still saying that today, given the number of times the Police Ombudsman has uncovered the fact that there has been collusion in Northern Ireland between the state and paramilitary organisations. Do you know what? I won't. This bill is attempting to close down the Police Ombudsman's opportunity to investigate issues of the past. I wonder why. It's also closing down access to the civil route for families. And what happened last Tuesday, Mr Deputy Speaker? The Secretary of State announced that there will be no new civil cases after that day. And what we had was families who were told they're supposed to be at the centre of this, families running around with their lawyers trying to get access to the courts before the courts closed that day. That's some way to treat the people who have suffered the most. It's all right for all the rest of us who are still here, who are doing quite well out of this peace process. The people who have been left behind have been treated shoddily by this government just as recently as last week. We have people who have waited decades for inquests, who are now in the queue for inquests, and they're being told that they won't have any opportunity to get the proper truth of what they deserve. If this is about truth, why are we afraid of inquests? I just do not understand it. This legislation is riddled with government overdrive. There's nothing independent about the way this organisation will be constituted. There's no meaningful Article 2 compliant investigations. It is a recipe, frankly, Mr Deputy Speaker, for impunity. And I've heard the reference to Canova. This is not Canova. This is nothing like Canova. Canova allowed proper judicial processes, proper investigation processes, so the families could get access to the truth, and so the rest of us could get access to the truth. South Africa, equally, Mr Deputy Speaker, this is not. It has been well debunked, that argument. And the government here telling us that they want to see access to truth. Well, let me tell you about two cases that I know well. Paul Witters was 15 years old in 1981. He was shot by a police officer in the head by a plastic bullet. Despite promises from this government given to me, his file has been closed for a further number of years. Do you know when that file is going to be opened, apparently, Mr Deputy Speaker? 2084. He was 15 years old. Julie Livingston in West Belfast and Lenadoon, 14 years old in the same year, 1981. The British Army fired a plastic bullet which killed her. Her file won't be opened until 2062. These are the people who are telling us that they want truth for an access to reconciliation for victims. Every single thing that they've done, whether it's in this, whether it's a Ballymurphy inquest, whether it's in a Bloody Sunday inquiry, everything they've done has been to protect the state, to deny access to truth, and to deny access for justice for those people who don't have the same ability to protect themselves. And I heard we have a new shiny headquarters for the NIO in Belfast. Well, victims were standing outside it today, Mr Speaker, protesting these proposals. And they were also in Derry and they were also at Downing Street because they believe, to a man and woman in my experience, that these proposals are absolutely wrong. Raymond McCord is in the public gallery. He's somebody who's had to fight tooth and nail against the state, against loyalist paramilitaries, to try and find truth and justice for his son, Raymond. I mean, the question is, does this government really care about Raymond and all of those victims, or do they simply care about fulfilling a manifesto commitment and protecting the state and protecting paramilitary killers? Because that is exactly what this piece of legislation will do if it's passed.